Hey, I'm JC Faxis, and you're watching MI's Most Interesting People. Today on the show, we have Mr. Marek Stycos. So let's get into it and find out what makes Marek one of MI's most interesting people. So how you doing, man?
They are as good as you can possibly imagine, given our circumstances, shall we say.
I want to know about young Marek. Um, when did you discover music? How old were you? Uh, what was your first record that you ever bought?
Right
Go
on.
ahead,
Well,
hit
for
me.
better or for worse, for the boredom of our listeners here, my sister showed up and played guitar one day to me, and she was 10 years older, so she was 16 and I was 6 years old, and I said, I want to do that. It was just instant, right? And so, what do all good parents do? They support their children in their musical endeavors and their artistic endeavors. So, they went out and they gave me this ukulele. And being a capricious youth, I said, I see four strings, not six. And I see a size mismatch here, right? So, my sister went up to the attic in her mom's house and came down with some relic from a time that man forgot, and it was a nylon string acoustic guitar, classical guitar with one of those fretboards that kind of turns inward like that, like a canoe. And I just logged hours after hours on that. My first guitar lesson, I learned E minor, E major, and E7. I think were the three chords, something like that. And so I wrote a song called "Look at the Dynamite" from those three chords at the age of 6 years old. So that's sort of where things began. But rapidly, I realized that there had to be more to this music thing, and I had the music bug. So I went out to my first rock concert. I think I must have been 10, and I went to see Boston. I just had no idea why anyone would go to a concert because it was so boring, because there was a whole rock band standing there and all they did was stand there and they just played the record perfectly, note for note. But there was just, I could have listened to it at home. But I thought, well, maybe I didn't get it. So I went to see the next band. The next band was the Cars. I think it was Candy Tour. And I checked that out and had the same reaction. These guys are statues, man. Nothing's happening. Why would I come see this show? And then I went to see the Grateful Dead, and I did think about scalping my ticket and getting out of it, but I went to see the Grateful Dead, and that was the most boring concert I ever saw in my life, except that I made a small fortune because my friends and I were wandering around under the bleachers and found all these bags of strange, like tea and scales and vials of stuff, and brought that back to the schoolyard. And my buddy, who was more advanced than we were physically and also obviously mentally, he was like, "Oh shoot, put that, put that away." He's like, "I got this." And then, by the end of the day, we had a lot of money to spend on stuff. So I never knew what those things were, but I knew I liked the Grateful Dead because they not only paid for my concert ticket, but I could make a living that way. Um, but I still wasn't convinced on why you should go to a concert. And then I went and I saw the Kinks, and I knew almost nothing about their music. Wasn't really following the band. And dude, Ray Davies just blew me away. He was a consummate frontman. He was out there grabbing people's hats, pulling audience members up on stage, high-fiving people. And I was like, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to do. Now I understand why people go to a rock concert. So that's where it
So,
all began. No, I have a huge debt to Ray. That's all. The debt I owe to Ray.
all right.
To some sort of song. But no, definitely not. But that was that side, and then the other side of me at 12 years old, I was selling door-to-door hi-fi. you could be, at that time, you could be a campus representative. So this company thought I was in college, not in, let's see, I was just finishing elementary school, going into junior high school. And at that time, people loved music, man. They weren't just like, listen, here, share my ear pod nonsense. They were actually experiencing stuff. And I know younger people don't want to hear this story because their parents told them and it's frigging boring. But I think I can tell you why it's boring to people hearing the story and why there's still truth in it today. So people listened to music back then as a community. So it was like, dude, I just got this record, man. Let's go to my house. And everybody would run over to somebody's house and sit and listen to the whole thing. And it was an experience, right? And what happened was music went from vinyl to compact discs to being MP3, something you download, that became a very insular experience and sounds like shit. Shit is a technical term for playback quality of an audio experience, just so everybody's aware. So I think when I take my tour out on the road, sorry, I'm changing the timeline here, but when I go out on the road with $180,000 worth of crazy recording gear, you don't need that to hear great music, but it's just what I bring everything so people can hear different stuff. But I play music and I watch all the different age groups have an emotional experience. And that's because the resolution, the recordings are great. The resolution of the files, the playback are awesome. The D-Day is killer. The monitor system is cool. And the speakers are great. So, and of course, we're in a cool studio, right? So everything's magic, it couldn't be any better. Anyway, so that was my quick tangent into why I believe that young people aren't necessarily having the experience that all of us grew up with organically, kind of whether you liked it or not, of music. Plus there was live music. If you're in Detroit, people were on the street corner trying to get a record deal, singing under the street lamp. It's not a joke. Ask Dave Isaac. He grew up there. He'll tell you stories about watching it, So back to me, selling home hi-fi was a pretty simple thing because everybody was into it. And so I could go to my friends' parents and say, hey, what are you using for a turntable? Did you want to get a sapphire, ruby, or a diamond stylus for your turntable? Right? It was a sexy business, man, and it was expensive. And the margins were crazy, So these guys at this hi-fi shop were giving me some measly cut, but they were still raking in the bank. And my prices were cheaper than the local guy. So, and I knew more. So that's how I really got into in the audio side was hi-fi. And but I was always playing with tape machines and stuff. Like my dad, who was a sociologist, demographer, amateur photographer, amateur pianist, he was a sucker for tech. So he would go interview people in Latin America and stuff, and he had these cool little tape recorders, which worked on micro cassettes and stuff like that. It was sort of like CIA technology at the time, right? So he had that, and my mother was a professor. Teaching her fourth language. First language Polish, French was her major, English, and then Spanish was what she taught at a Ivy League university. So she had a cassette recorder about that big that you could actually plug into the wall, didn't just run on batteries. And so I would play my guitar and sing onto the first one, and then hit playback on that one, and then play along with it to the CIA recorder. So I'm doing early sound on sound, right, to get my overdubs. And then you start to notice after you do that a few times, that things are just getting to the point where they're unrecognizable. So that's how I backdoored into it.
Yeah, let me interrupt you for a second. You were talking about your parents. Now, your mom is, you can say, out of this world, right? Welcome, being
Yes.
from beyond our world. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we knew Carl Sagan being being a product of Ithaca, New York, and my parents were professors. I went to Cornell University later in life, but yeah, so we knew Carl. We'd been to his house before his divorce, and that's a fantastic story. If you ever want to listen to it, it's a podcast about falling in love with the person that he was developing the Voyager project with. It's just it's a real love story. Anyway, so they decided for the Voyager project, they wanted to make this golden record, and they wanted to record greetings in many different languages. And somehow it came down to my mother that they needed someone to do it in Polish. So she's on Voyager, man. She's out there. She's gonna outlive us all.
Damn, that's so cool, man.
Moment of silence
cool, man.
for
Your
mom.
mom in space, forever. Yeah.
Yeah, her dad was a famous opera singer, Marian Novakovsky. So she was way into music at an early age. And what was interesting about her was that whereas my dad was a performer and a pianist and played on the radio in Puerto Rico and stuff like that, she was an avid listener, although she did play piano and sing. Once she got married to my dad, type A personality, you don't do that anymore. So I'm the center of attention. I had to sort of learn my way out of that one in relationships. So she, as an avid listener, though, she really had an understanding of what music should sound like. So when she would listen to a stereo or something or reproduction, she couldn't necessarily tell you what was wrong with it, but she could tell you that she didn't like it. It didn't feel right. And I think that's something we've gotten away from, is the feeling of music and how it should affect us. I know, again, jumping in timeline, back when I had a team of 16 humans out in the field at Guitar Center representing every corner of the lower 48 states, I would get them together to do things. And I would, instead of going to meet in a Marriott ballroom and eating pasta primavera with steamed vegetables, I would take them for a cultural experience. We'd go have, at that time, not a lot of, just wasn't like now. Sushi is ubiquitous. It's everywhere, right? Now Thai food is everywhere. Indian food is everywhere. But even 20 years ago, it was hard to find all those things, or they were considered a little more exotic. So I would always make sure we went out for a culinary experience. We also went to museums, and if we could see something musical, we would. So I took these guys to see the San Francisco Philharmonic, and it was around 2000. And one of the guys broke down and cried listening to the performance. And he said, I just didn't know music could sound this good, Papa. Wow. I didn't know it was possible. Just never had an organic experience. So she had that mnemonic record. And I think it's really important to build mnemonics, into your life, into the fabric of our DNA. My son, when he was in utero, I read him every Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, book in the series. And I love that series. I'll get accused of being a closet Christian for that, I guess, now, since the author is under the gun for that. But the point is, I wanted him to know the cadence of the spoken word. And really, when he appeared, I spoke to him, he looked at me like, oh, I know that dude. I know that voice, but also at a young age, I wanted him to hear real pianos, violins, brass instruments, horns. Nothing against anything synthetic or sampled. I just wanted to make sure that he understood that as well, because my opinion is, look, when synthesizers came out, they said, we're going to replace pianos and orchestras and everything in the world, right? And what really happened was you had all these really cool new sounds that you added to orchestras and things. and look at the whole circle that we're doing, going back to vintage synths right now, right? This is a whole timbre and patina, a cavalcade of a cornucopia of sonics that we can go enjoy and play with. So anyway, so my point is, I wanted to get those things written into his mind at an early age, so you'd know the magic of a piano, how that can really move you. And then when you are listening to things, you have a point of reference, just like my mother did. She could come to my house and she would say, I don't know what it is, but I just enjoy it, listening to the music here, and I feel like I want to stay longer. And that's really what it is. Music shouldn't chase you out. It should make you want to do whatever you're doing. It should move you in some way, make you happy, angry, horny, something, right? It's got to have a visceral reaction. All great art should have some sort of make you have a reaction, or it's not art. It's a simulacrum. Okay. I still study music I don't like. Like my son years ago was like, Dad, how could you buy that song? I want to be one of the cool kids. He's like, Dad, why are you playing this? I'm like, I have to find out why people love this song. You're always a student.
So you covered some Guitar Center stuff. Let's talk about your Guitar Center days. You were very instrumental, along with Mr. David Angris and Tony Price, in actually elevating Guitar Center at one time.
Half price.
Tony Half Price, or Smoothie, as he's known to his friends. Because when I started there, it was all B and C manufacturers. There wasn't really anything pro. Tell me about how you guys, how you were instrumental in basically with your 16 guys and your philosophy, and with those guys. And I know you were saying that you took them for sushi and to the Philharmonic, but you also took them out mountain climbing. Bruzy, I think, is still recovering from that one, and I'm sure a couple of other guys. But can you fill me in on, when you started, and I guess what was your thinking, and what was your method to elevate Guitar Center? I was in management, and you guys kept asking for cool gear, and we had to fight budget and sell through, but we also wanted to get you the good gear. And then you guys started selling it. But going back a little ways, when I was at the store, you guys were instrumental in not only teaching the store guy about the gear and why you should upsell somebody into better gear, but it also gave the sales guy a path. Because before, it was, you could be a store manager or you could be a sales guy, and that's all there was. And then when you started your RDM or DDM team, now there was another path for somebody who didn't want to run a store, but still wanted to make some kind of difference. So, I mean, you started in what, 94, about there?
93, yeah.
93. And tell me, when you first got there, what do you think about Guitar Center, and how did you do your magic, man? I mean, it really helped.
Well, so I'd already managed music stores on the East Coast in Boston. In fact, Gene Jolly and I were competitors. And when I moved to LA, I was going to be a producer, right? You get the R when you're good, and I certainly was far from that, and probably still am. So I went and applied to a bunch of places, and I didn't understand. I was used to New York and East Coast, where people just say, fuck off. here in LA, they were all like, great, this is wonderful, man. I don't have anything right now, but I'll definitely keep your resume on file. And I didn't know that was the same thing as what they tell you in New York in a different style. So I got down to my last coins in my pocket, and I had to go buy these 6 white cans that have blue letters on them that just say beer with those coins. And
I remember
said, I'm like, man, something's got to change here. Yeah, because I had two possible tickets before I acquiesced to go back to music retail. One was Jakey Lee and Mandy Leone were going to start this new project, and I talked IRS Records into letting me use their recording studio. But the deal breaker was Mandy Leone called me and he's like, I was like, hey man, so we don't have enough money for the tape. Can you front the tape? And I didn't have enough money for a reel of 2-inch because I only had those coins for the BEER. Right. So anyway, I called all the music stores on Ventura Boulevard. And at that time there was Guitar, which we called Cigar, and there was Joe Goodman's, and there was Guitar Center, and there was Nadine's. So I called all those people, set up appointments, and I went for interviews. And at Guitar Center, I decided, okay, they all offered me jobs, and I decided I'll take this because I haven't worked for like a corporate music gig. Let's see what this is like. And it's only going to be for a couple weeks anyway, right? So I took that job, and I don't want to go into all the details of why the first day was a disaster, because that's a story for fermented cocktails. But suffice it to say that as I worked there, I realized that there was just about nothing that I could sell, because most of the stuff was Toys R Us. So I went into the newspaper, the recycler, and just started buying used gear, because I was told you're an entrepreneur and you have an unlimited buying budget.
This is your business.
Create your business.
Yeah.
So I went in there, and that's what I did. And I bought, $500,000 worth of products. And it was stuff that I was fascinated about. This is, we're talking 93, 94, before there was, everything is everything today. In other words, there's a recreation for everything. First of all, Universal Audio exists as a company again, right? And they make 1176s again. And so does Purple Audio, and so does Clark Technic, AKA Behringer, and so does like 9 million other people. And then there's the whole used market, right? So before that, all we had was the used market, and it was historical. And guys would bring this stuff, and they would teach me, this young, ignorant kid that was just dying to learn. Like, who was it, man, that brought me a pair of Neumann M50s with consecutive serial numbers, with the jewel light on them, and was telling me how he recorded orchestras and Aerosmith, and taught me about bloom line pattern, formation, all this just great, knowledge that was passed down in what I call tribal knowledge. So I was doing it because I'm a lifelong student, and so I'm learning about it. I'm getting this education, and I'm getting products that I can sell to real pros, because we're in the Valley, we're in Sherman Oaks, and at that time, that's where all the producers lived. At least it felt like that to me. If you're in Hollywood, you saw the stars, you saw the artists, but in the Valley, we got all the producers. Look, I didn't know who any of my clients were. Michael Wagner and people like that came in and bought stuff. I had no idea who they were. We'd talk together. I'd hook them up. I remember Michael was there one day. I don't know what he does for a living. For all I know, he's a hobbyist in recording, right? And this kid's asking me at the counter. Michael's right behind him, and the kid's asking me, "Hey, man, how do you get that George Lynch guitar sound?" Michael, who I have no idea, has recorded, Dawkins and a million incredible, artists from that time period. So, do you mind? He steps up. Let me tell you, and he explains that Lynch was telling him on the phone that, I get this killer sound from my Tascam 4-track, man. And so Wagner's
Wow.
like, bring it. So under the Neve console, they're recording through the Tascam 4-track. Is how they
Oh, that's
got the
crazy.
sound on the early record. So what am I going to sell the kid? A Tascam 4-track now, I guess.
Bam.
So anyway, so that was the time period. It was really exciting.
It was
And
fun.
man, I just learned learned so much from people, and it was so much fun to be able to help solve people's problems and put those things together. So really, I created my own inventory at that time. To put in perspective, we didn't carry Mackie. We carried
Sound. Oh,
yes, sound.
they, Studio Master
Studio
sound.
Master. Studio Master. It
Yeah.
wasn't Soundtracks. Soundtracks was actually cool at that time.
Yeah.
We didn't carry that. Yeah, it was Studio Master with the made in China sticker on the back, and nobody was making audio gear in China at that time.
No.
So you knew it had to be bad. And I can tell you more beer stories about that. But so yeah, so we didn't carry anything reputable. So really that was the troublesome part. So what happened was reps discovered they would come in to the store and they would see this counter full of history, and they're like, what the hell are you doing with a Teletronics LA2A? And I would, look, let me show you, open it up and talk to them about it. Hey, look, it's a U-47. Is it a long body, short body, chrome top? Has got a VF14 tube in it? Is original power supply? I hope not. And so suddenly they realized there's a guy here that actually knows something. I know he's only in his 20s. Hey, man, I've got this Anthony De Maria Labs LA2A recreation in ADL 1000. Could I just drop it off here with you? And I was like, sure. How much does it cost? And what should I sell it for? And I would, it wasn't in inventory, and I would just start turning people onto stuff. And I started selling that. And then the buyers at corporate had to build it into the system so that I could sell it. We could roll it, so we could make the money on it, show it as a sale. And the store manager, of course, was all over that part because he wanted to look good on paper to his bosses. Hey, look, here are some big numbers. And so that's really what happened. And it was the ADAT revolution. People were, I was stacking 26 ADATs on the floor, and just selling 3 or 4 at a clip with a big random clock. That's the BRC, the big random clock. And remote meter bridges and Mackie 32.8s. And, I had a whole system because the rock stars at that time, like Matt Sorum, put his room together from Guns N' Roses, and he, they all had Porsche Carreras at that time. So you had to take the top down, you slid the console and the stand behind the driver and passenger seat that would stick up in the air. Yeah. And then the beautiful woman that they brought with them would inevitably be holding the meter bridge between her legs. And there's some phallic joke, of course, going on about that as they're happily driving away down the street with the studio in a Porsche Carrera, which happened on more than one occasion. I could have probably done a commercial for the company at the time. Are you cool enough for this car? Do you have a recording studio in it? That's a real confidence mix for you. So that's kind of what was going on there. And eventually what happened was I was leaving the company because I couldn't stand the cast of unethical characters that would be called store managers that would come through there. And I was damaging my soul. So I was going to leave. And then one of the people who I believed in, his character, there were 3 people in the company that really kept me there. There was Marty Albertson, who became the co-CEO and then CEO, right? But at the time, I don't know what his position was, but he used to phone shop me as a sales guy. And so we got this relationship together. He came from came from the stores, and he always knew what it meant to be in the stores. So he had a heart, is what I felt. And then there was David Angris, you mentioned, and then Peter Schultzke. Peter's got a super mixed track record out there. Some people hate him, some people love him. He's a dad figure to people. Some people hate their dads, people love their dads. Anyway, Peter and I got along great. As soon as I explained to him, I said to him, "Why did you tell me that again?" I said, "Tell you what?" So you just told me. You just repeated yourself. You always tell me things twice or three times. So don't do that anymore. Don't ever tell me anything twice. He said, "The first time, bro, that I only tell you something once and you fuck it up, you're out of here." I'm like, "Great." And after that, we had a perfect relationship.
Nice.
So for 15 years at Guitar Center, and we're still friends to this day. Anyway, my point is, he called me up and talked me into moving to Miami. Even I'd already looked at real estate in another city where I was going to start a recording school. This is 1995. It's still a new idea, kind of recording schools. And my girlfriend had already switched jobs to work in that city, and we were that far along. But he said, "Hey, bro, just put it out to your girl. Ask her what she thinks about moving to Miami." I'm like, "Dude, she's not going to want to." I'm like, "Hey, did you want to?" Peter wanted me to ask you what you think about moving to Miami. "Hey, that sounds like fun." "Really? Do I know you?" So next thing you know, we went to Miami, which I was promised was for a year, but I knew meant 2 years because Guitar Center has a different type of time than the rest of the universe. And so I acknowledged that going into it. And my job was to open those stores and make them successful, which, again, that's another whole chapter we can talk about, which was really an amazing history in time. And ultimately, I moved up to the Northeast where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in New York. And I gave myself the self-appointed title of regional technology manager, which didn't exist in the company, but I made my own business cards and I made my own title. So no one seemed to care because I increased the fuck out of sales, by teaching people and turning them on to good things and useful tools. So we continued to, the Northeast. I mean, I remember getting a call from the buyer at the time. I think he was a guy, super nice guy, but I think he came from like the clothing industry, like he was in pants before that. And he's like, "Boy, you sure sell a lot of those types of microphones." I'm like, "What do you mean types?" "Like, expensive stuff." I'm like, "I do?" "Yeah, your region outsells Southern California, by times 10. I'm like, "Wow, that's fascinating." And it was just because I loved talking about transducers. I loved microphones. So Guitar Center tried to get me, as soon as I bought my house in 1999 in New York, of which you can see, there is my mountain that I own, Jason.
It's a beautiful view.
It's Marek's mountain. Yeah, you can see hawks come down here and grab their kill. I've seen that during a recording session. The dude was cutting tracks right here, looking out the window, and the hawk comes down, like slow motion, pulls this I don't know what it was, chipmunk or something, flies off, and the guy stops, and I look at him, I go, "What's the problem, man?" Had to take a break. Anyway, so I moved here in 99, and that is the week I got the call, "Hey, so we think you're ready to move to Los Angeles and become the national sales manager for Pro Audio." So anyway, so I turned that job down 3 times. And the 4th time, this guy, Mark Nelson, who called me up, and he said, he's smart, man. He's like, "I think I can overcome your objection. Your objection is you don't want to move. So what if you didn't have to? What if you could have the gig and you could live in New York?" All of a sudden, that took a lot of bluster out of me, right? So I didn't have a big argument about it. And so then I just negotiated about money, how much money I wanted to make, of course, right? And perks. And one thing everybody should know when you're negotiating for perks at a job is, the money will only go so far and they're not going to pay you anymore. You have to go into alternative forms of payment. So an alternative form of payment is, I want more vacation days. I would like my health insurance to start earlier or be a better policy. I would like a new laptop every year. And at that time, the company was PC only. So I specified in my contract I would get a new Mac laptop every year. I also insisted that I get a Pro Tools HD4 system with all the trimmings, which was
Nice.
also provided to me. And then one day, David Angers, who we've been talking about, called and he said, "I'm done with this negotiation. You take the job or you leave it. What pissed you off today?" I was like, "Well, this, and this." He goes, "That is now your fault. Go and solve it." And I thought, you know what? That appealed to me more than anything anybody had said, because I wanted to fix all that broken dreck within the company. All the things that fighting for the salesperson that had infuriated me all those years, suddenly I felt that I was going to be in a better position to change. And so that's why I took that gig, man. I like a challenge. I would like to run the post office or the trains in the United States. Those are the kind of gigs that I want, right? Impossible gigs. And this seemed like, an impossible gig, but I would do it. And that's what started the whole thing. So now I'm in this gig that nobody respects, because all the people that have had it before, for whatever reason, have just sort of let it, I don't know, they haven't got traction with it. So I realize it's this, Pro Audio is dead last in the company, everything, dead last in sales, margin, profit. It's the worst. So I love coming in from a position of last place, because you can only get better. You can't get any worse. You're already last. So I decided to make this thing called the Survival Guide, because I needed to communicate to the humans out there, what is the play? Because obviously, if I'm selling all these mics and cool stuff in the Northeast, why shouldn't the rest of the country be doing that? The LA market, Southern California, is such a much bigger musical market than we are in the Northeast. Why don't we do something? So I created a magazine. The problem is I had no money, of course. Guitar Center, I mean, back in Sherman Oaks, after the Northridge earthquake, right? I'm in 1994, the store is destroyed. I can tell you what the day is like by looking through the ceiling over here, because you can see right through it. When it rains, it comes in. So I just asked for a can of paint. Like, I'll paint the wall. Can you just give me a can of paint? No, we don't have any budget for that. So that's where Guitar Center was, right? So I go to the manufacturers. I go to all the people that are my friends that I know and respect and love their stuff, and say, would you like to advertise in this magazine I'm going to make, right? And they sponsored this magazine, and I had it printed, and I had it sent out via the pouch. It was an internal system. Yeah, that didn't cost anything. I'd already studied all this, so it went out via the pouch. And again, another David Angers story. His credit, he comes up to me at the AES show and he says, "Hey, what the hell is this?" And he pulls up a copy of the Survival Guide. And I'm like, I explained to him, I go, "This is a means of communication to all the salespeople. So we have a direction every month, and it's going to be educational, and it's going to be fun." And he's like, "Look, I love the idea, but you can't go ask our manufacturers for money. I'm already asking them for discounts when we buy stuff. Merchandising and marketing are already asking them for money so they can use those vehicles. And here you are asking them for like a paltry $500 to speak directly to the salespeople. It's like it's way underpriced." So he found the money and financed it for me, and ran the thing. So that was wildly successful, and we did all sorts of cool things, dude. I took 12 people to go to Abbey Road Studios in London, to go to see Real World in Bath. Peter Gabriel's room together. We toured. We took the high-speed train from London to Paris when they had just opened a new station. I think it was 2007 of November. We got to come out of that new station and observe how it was supposed to, it's going to be modeled after Grand Central Station. So, but you can see the trains and it'll be quieter. And it was friggin' quiet, dude. It was acoustically sound.
Yeah.
Anyway, just all that, just amazing adventures that I was able to create because
And you also
of
did the sales contest, which,
those,
I mean,
those were sales
working at the
contests. Those were
store,
prizes. Yeah.
yeah, working at the store, I mean, we weren't making money. It was enough to eat sometimes. So, and you went to work at Guitar Center because you wanted gear. I mean, nobody grows up going, I want to be a salesman at Guitar Center. It's you go there to work for gear. And the contests that you would put together and worked it out with, the manufacturers, that helped guys get so much gear and actually build their studio and help them at least live their dream for a little while of becoming the artist, the recording engineer, the famous drummer. I was out of the stores by then, so I didn't really get to participate. But I know a lot of guys who finally were able to get gear that they couldn't afford.
Well, a
So,
big part of the problem was, look, I have a seat at the corporate table, and the corporate attitude was shitty towards the salesperson, and it infuriated me. So, somebody would say, oh, well, the salespeople, they don't, some remarks, some castaway. And I would have to interrupt and say, excuse me, do you understand that you're sitting here
because
at
of them.
corporate having your lunch, eating off the sweat and toil off the shoulders of the proletariat who's working down there in the ditches? Those are the people who you should be thanking every day for their dedication and hard work. So you can sit up here and complain that your steak isn't made correctly.
Yeah.
So I would get on that soapbox, and because Marty was there, it resonated because he was still a product of the stores,
Yeah.
So they wouldn't get, one of the first questions I asked was, what is our turnover rate? They had no idea. In fact, Marty went out and created an HR department to get the answer. So what is our turnover rate? It was 200% at the store level. And what is the store manager turnover rate? And that was 50%, either 100 or 50%. I can't even remember now. So we have a chronic problem. So my pitch was, do you know how hard it is to get good people? And do you know how expensive it is to train them? I mean, my philosophy is that, a corporation, even though a corporation today can sue or be sued or buy property, I mean, how does a corporation do that? It's not a living thing, but legally it can in this country. A corporation is made up of humans, and a corporation is only as good as those humans. Bad people, bad company. Great people, great company. So my whole pitch was, we need to retain people, and you're not paying them enough. So I was not allowed to go out and give everybody a raise. Here we are, right? Elections talking about minimum wage, right? There was none of that happening. So I can't give you a raise, but I can reward you for performance. And that's why I went to the manufacturers and said, look, let's feature something this month, and then the top people will get these prizes, right? And they will be rewarded, they'll be excited, and we're going to elevate your sales. And that worked over and over and over again. And then for the people there are also people that they don't want to sell. Maybe they're the support team. They're the guy that knows how to integrate the system and tie it all together, the background, the operations, or maybe they make the store look beautiful. So I created different incentives to build the best display or come up with a creative way to market something, and people got rewarded for all that as well. And then those big rewards, the ultimate ones, were those things like travel around the world. I took people to Hong Kong, man. I took people to Vienna to, may the AKG factory rest in peace out there, right? We got to see those things that don't even exist. We went to mainland China to see how Martin builds lights out there, right? I mean, what an eye-opening experience. Jeremy Aker, who's my director of marketing at Audio Alchemist, he won that trip. He's with me, and we're on the top floor of this building, which is really, you're on the EPDM rubber roof, and they've created, you know, tin with some poles on the side to hold the tin up there, and it's summer, and he asked the guy, "Wow, man, it's so hot. How do people work up here?" And the guy says, "Oh, yes, so we use natural cooling system, water to cool the area for you, to keep employee from overheat." And he's like, he looks, and the guy walks away, and Jeremy's like, "Wow, man, so he's using like a green system." And I go, "Yeah, it's this shit called rain. Go climb out on the edge, and you look up at the roof and see if you see anything." So he does. He climbs out on the edge, and he looks up on the tin roof, and he's like, "There's nothing there." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, it's called nature." So we all got to get our eyes open, and travel and explore, and yes, be able to eat, to be able to feel good about what you did. But my thing is, look, it's about the people. You've got to surround yourself with good people. I have two maxims. One is from Dave Angus. You can't do good business with bad people. And
Yep.
the second one is that I've only learned recently is you can't do smart business with stupid people. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry that sounds a little mean-spirited in our PC world today, but it is accurate. So we need to invest in our people, and we need to be agile and out front of the market. And it is so complicated today because not only is the marketplace changing constantly right now, evolving, but the way that we do anything, market, advertise, bring things to market, is all changing. And I mean, just think about, Google's algorithm or Facebook's algorithm. They're always changing. How do we operate? So that's why I started this company, Audio Alchemist. I have Audio Alchemist, but I started Audio Alchemist Digital, was to address how to try to see in front, and then how to remain an agile, observant, smart, forward-thinking responder, because you still have to react to things out there for our customer. So this is it's an insane world that's ever evolving, because going back to the Guitar Center thing, it used to be one company made a microphone, a large diaphragm microphone for recording, under $1,000. An AKG 414 was $899. I think it was $799 in like 1988 when I was selling it at LaSalle Music. And it's like $899, for years and years and years. Who knows what it is, but it's still going to be under $1,000. Maybe it's even less because it's made in foreign places now, Mexico and China, as I understand. So my point is, now there are 9 billion large diaphragm recording microphones that are under $100. So it is so complicated to be a great, powerful sales human, and also to be a customer. Because how do you make decisions? They said the internet was going to democratize everything, but instead, every single thing you look at, it's like, hey, let's take a look at these Beyer DT770 headphones. Let's go look at the reviews on these. It's going to say they're the best headphone in the world and the worst headphone in the world. That's all. That's what you're going to find. So
Yeah.
you need your audio sensei, man. And that's what we were trying to build at that time. We're audio senseis that could lead people out of darkness into the light, man.
Yeah, that was I think the whole DDM team, that was probably the best teaching method that the stores ever saw. I know they went to, books and online, and it's just not the same as having somebody knowledgeable come to you and tell you, you should look at this. Here's this, and it's great, blah, blah, blah. But this is why you should pitch this one. and these are the reasons why. Try it. Instead of, I remember we went to the book training, and it was great because you got the basic knowledge, but it's not the hands-on, and it's not somebody that you trust telling you or confirming your suspicions, I guess, of why this is better.
Well, yeah, multiple guess when you can have two windows open, on your computer to answer the questions. It's definitely not as compelling as someone walking up to you and like grabbing a Stedman pop screen, right? And saying, look, here's the Stedman pop screen. Here's my lighter. Blow out the lighter. And the guy going, I can't blow it out, man. That's awesome, right? They've done it themselves. It's one thing to see it. It's another thing to hold it in your hand and do it, right? Or we'd open up all the direct boxes and put them in the counter. And I'd open up the, the rolls, whatever it was, for like $24. And I'd say, here, this is the smell of China. Oh my God, right? And, and then I'd open up the radial direct box, the JDI, be like, that's the smell of Canada.
Yeah.
I don't smell anything. It's inert. Those wonderful.
It smells like Canadian bacon.
Right.
Sorry, Peter.
So he didn't own the company anymore. It's Mike Beelan.
That's right.
So anyway, but the point was no slam on China. Just as a quick aside, China can build anything you want. They can build the cheapest stuff in the world, and they can build best stuff in the world. You just have to ask them what you want to build. And we were asking, well, that company was asking them to build the cheapest stuff in the world. So anyway, but it was, look, you're looking at the counter and you're like, what is the difference between a $25 direct box and this $200 rec box? And you could just instantly see, oh, this has got one transformer the size of my pinky fingernail. That's how much iron is in it. And this one's got one this big, right? So the little one's going to take my bass guitar and turn it into a banjo. That's reality. That's helping people. Now they believe you, because there are also a lot of people that go out there and teach you nonsense. It's no good.
What was it? It was, see how this mic sounds? Look at the rejection. It's really good. How about this one? This one's really bad. And it's like, dude, you can't fake me out with this.
Yeah, I remember I had the rep come in, and when I was the sales punk I was describing, and he tells me, this is a Class A discrete device. And just like with everything, not that I know much about electronics, but I know a tiny bit. So I just want to open things and at least look at them, because you can tell when something's been put together intentionally and with care, and you can tell when something's been just put together in the randomizer, Frankensteinian laboratory, right? So I take the screws apart, I open it, I'm like, what's that? And he's like, I don't know. I go, it's called chip, integrated circuit. Therefore, it is not a Class A discrete device, dude. He's like, well, how was I supposed to know? By opening it.
All of that led you to your company now, right? You finally left GC, and then you started Audio Alchemist, right? But you've also got something else on the side. Yeah, I mean, another company, right?
I was hoping you weren't talking about significant others or something like that. There's no reason to try to throw me under the bus.
No. I've met all 6 of your girlfriends, so I'm not gonna, I don't have a favorite, so it's all good.
You better have a favorite. Her name's Lila.
Lila, all right. Lila's my favorite.
All right, so geez, and I am monogamous. All right, so the story behind Audio Alchemist. So at the end of Guitar Center, they eliminated the team and the whole project that I had developed that had proven to be financially successful, and as well as successful for people, for retention. We really dramatically slowed down the retention of human beings, and because of that, I have relationships with so many people around the country, because we both cared about our futures. There's real intention and care about it beyond a company. So when I left after getting the world's worst pitch on why to stay, I decided I wanted to do something that was unique. So I first of all took 8 months off because my brain had been eroded by 15 years of Guitar Center, and I actually felt like I was losing my mind because I would jump time zones. I'd be in China, New York, LA, all over, and I had a newborn um, during that time, and so I wasn't. So he wakes you up, and you're not getting any sleep on the road, and your schedule is all a disaster. So your memory and your mind starts to go a bit. So I had to take a break, and I just spent a lot of time outdoors. Went backpacking, canoed across Mongolia with some friends. Which is just a remarkable experience. A place where you don't see a sign of a human being, no footprint, no trash, not a vapor trail or a plane in the sky. And after
Wow.
5 days of that, you start to ask yourself, is there something that I should know? Has there been a nuclear holocaust? So that peeled my onion, which is what I do periodically. I'm actually, I want to tell you what I'm thinking about doing next. Anyway, so I wanted to start a company, not a rep firm, because I'd been exposed to so many bad rep firms, and there are great rep firms out there, but I'd been exposed to so many bad rep firms with the example like I just gave you, that I wanted to start something new. I really wanted to take the companies that I loved. I had brought all these companies into Guitar Center. I brought Royer and Manley and Dangerous Music and brought all those companies into GC. They had never done business with us before, and they were very successful with us at the time. So I wanted to work with those people that I loved, and so really the model became Audio Alchemist is a brand management company that takes companies that are 5 million bucks and under and gives them all the tools they need to succeed. So each one is a snowflake, right? They're all different, but they need to, at the end of the day, they need to look like UA. They need to look like Universal Audio at the end. They need to have killer videos and a great digital presence, and they have to have products that are explained. They have to have a person out there who is engaged and is in their ambassador and loves what they're doing. They have to have someone that tells them what might be intelligent to do for the future, what products would make sense, really to make sense of their whole company. And often those leaders of those companies may prefer the company of cats and
Yeah.
circuit boards than humans, right?
Oh, engineers, right?
Yeah, Karim Call said to me once, he said, you genuinely like people. I think it was an insult, but it's true. I do, So, guilty as charged. So anyway, so what happened was a few people took the leap. Manley got on board. We've been together like 10 years. Dangerous Music got on board. We're together for 11, and it's been a hell of a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, man, because you have to do all sorts of things. You have to be everything. You don't have departments, and whenever you have a good idea, guess what? That's your job to figure it out. So there's no delegation very often. So that I spent a decade really honing the craft of understanding that there are three legs to everything, right? There's manufacturing, and there's sales and marketing. So I spent all that time really in the sales and marketing avenues. In fact, we started a company this year at NAMM in January, Audio Alchemist Digital, the play on AAD, if anybody remembers how CDs used to have their ratings, AAD,
Yeah.
ADD, DDD, whatever. So, and that side of it, Jeremy Aker is heading up with a hand-selected team of really smart, switched-on people, and that's all about the social piece, all about digital marketing. How do you do it today? And we've been doing it for Manley and Dangerous for 2 years, and highly successful. This year we opened it up to other brands that want to get on board and can be agnostics. They don't have to be part of my all analog side of the world, Marek representation. They can work behind digital curtain on the AD side. That's just, and then of course Corona came and people realized, okay, this is non-negotiable anymore. This has to be part of our offering.
Yeah.
And so with that, I had been discussing, I wanted to get into manufacturing so I could learn that last part of the, the holy trinity. We've got the sales, marketing, and manufacturing. I wanted to understand all aspects. So the owner of Dangerous, his products are like his kids because he doesn't have any kids. So he didn't want to hand it off to some megalomaniac type organization that would start making $99 dangerous mics. He wanted to give it to someone who understood the intention of the company, how much sweat equity had gone into building this, how much love, intelligence, gray matter, thoughtfulness, care had gone behind it. And so he was willing to work with me to sell the company to me. So it took a couple of years, major business plans, and working through, I didn't want partners. I wanted to go this road alone. I'd already been with Guitar Center, private, public, private, and I was not going to answer to a venture capitalist group at that time. Future endeavors, sure, maybe, but this one, I need to make the decisions myself, and have a shot at that and see where that takes me. If they're wrong, it's my fault. That's fine. I take full responsibility.
Yeah.
So we did it, man. It was February 28th. My mother passed away on February 4th. That was a big shock. It wasn't expected. She was living on her own and everything. And so I have, I've got 10 days to move her stuff out of her place, or I get charged $15,000. And my girlfriend Lila's being a superhero over there, organizing, taking videos so the family can look online to see if there are things they want. But we got to get out by the end of February. And luckily it was leap year, so I had to have one extra day. And I'm sitting there on February 28th, on the Johnny spot where a lot of people probably a lot of executives make big decisions. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, you idiot, coronavirus is going to be huge. No one's talking about it yet, but I know it's coming. So you're going to buy a company and go into debt yourself, putting everything you have on the line, going to go into debt and take this on, and you don't even know if anybody's going to be buying anything at this point. And I realized I could go back and grind for a better price, but I know the owner. He's not going to do it. That's not, he's going to tell me to, fuck off is what he's actually going to say, And if I go to the SBA and ask for a better rate on the loan, they're going to say, a storm's coming. We don't think we should actually back this after all. And I probably won't get the creative financing because it was creative. So I just said, all right, it's February 28th. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to do it. And that was it. So I went in with eyes wide open, and man, I am thrilled to have done it. It's been absolutely a wild ride, and it's only beginning, and there's more to come. I mean, like, as of today, I'm looking for a switch master, someone to handle high-speed digital routing, board layouts. Was I looking for that the whole time I was at Guitar Center? So it's calling upon a complete different skill set, which I told you earlier, I am a perpetual student. I love it. So it's a great place to be. It's a new thing. It ties everything in, all the other things that I wanted together, because now it's like, let's make this decision from the beginning that's going to go all the way through to the marketing aspect, or to the explanation to the end user of why they would possibly need this thing. So
what's your favorite piece? What's your favorite dangerous piece?
I don't have a favorite piece. It's kind of like people ask me that about bands. I don't have a favorite band. I mean, I can tell you, like, when I get a new record, I'm going to I'm assuming it's worthy. I'm going to listen to it ad nauseum to study it until I understand it. And then I really put it away and it's off in circulation. I'm the guy with 6.5 terabytes of music on a hard drive, everything 16-bit, 44.1 or higher. So everything CD resolution or better on there. So that's what I do. So I study things. So I don't have a favorite piece. It's a system. It's the Dangerous System complete. It's a way to work. It's a philosophy that I love. The philosophy, which is absolutely counterculture. Right now, what's out there is color, color, color. So you buy a compressor, but you've actually bought an equalizer built into the compressor because it's going to have a big personality. You know, if you go buy yourself a gate stay level, you know, it's great on three things. It works on a male vocal, a kick drum, and bass guitar, and it sucks on everything else. You buy a Dangerous compressor, it works on everything because it's transparent and musical and versatile. And that's really the whole line is that way. So we're not trying to tell you how to sound. You make your sound. Todd Whitelock will tell you he has defined the sound for Mack Avenue Records because they wanted to be the next Blue Note. He defined their sound by using the Dangerous System. He's able to craft what he wants. And that's really what excites me, because great art stands the test of time, not by copying, but by being original. So we try to make products that let you define yourself and your art so it can stand the test of time. And me, a listener, can enjoy it. So that to me is that's my favorite piece of gear, the Sonics.
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, I know your reputation, so I know you wouldn't put out something with a really high SLA factor. So,
or PPI.
Yeah, or PPI.
LPI factor.
Yeah.
Lights per
The SLA, it sounds like ass. Talk about Marek the musician. You have some CDs out, right?
Oh man, we shouldn't talk about that. Yeah, I blew the dust off that. You know what happens is you go into a dark period. I had a really long, I really had about 10 years of divorce, so it's just you go into sort of a dark time where work is a great escape and the outdoors and my son, all that, and fortunately I had just an incredible human being as my girlfriend to carry me through those dark times. And so the latest record I just finished, it's called there's like 7 records in this brick, and I'm actually remixing the first one right now because I realized I can't come out with number 7. I want to tell the whole story and just end that period of time in my life. So it's going to be called Seeds and Stems, not that I smoke weed, because I don't, but because it's 17 songs from the 17 years of my son's life from the day he was born till I got the record mixed, right? And I actually said I'm not going to mix it. Michael James was kind enough to mix the record for me, and Mike Wells mastering. Mike was kind enough to master it for me. So it's not released because I want to go back and finish the other catalog and then release that as a website, put it out there on DistroKid, so that it's going to come out as it's sort of a story, man. It's a 7-part story, and you can cherry pick it, or you can listen to the whole thing, or do whatever you want. So that's coming. That's forthcoming. That'll be out there, and then the next record is just going to be start from scratch, and I have one song's nice. Done for that, which is actually it's about. No, I'm not going to tell you about it. So you'll have to wait to find out.
Let it be a surprise. All right.
So yeah, because I haven't decided where that record's going to go. But anyway, so that's what's happening with me. I did just finish 2 songs for a sports channel. A friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, can you write 2 instrumentals that are hard rock vein?" And that was great. Wrote 2 songs, recorded 2 songs in 2 days. And that reminded me that I'm a guitar player, not just a guitar collector. So that was very helpful. It reminded me that I enjoy actually partaking in that. So that's what's happening in the musical life. I'm trying to turn, my plan this year was to turn this room, I was going to rent it out and I was going to travel the world. So I was going to take I can be anywhere and I need to be everywhere, right? I need to be in Los Angeles. I need to see our dealers and distributors in Europe, and I want to go to China, and I want to see people in Thailand, and I want to see all our friends, and go out there. So
Yeah.
my plan for 2020 was to just hit the road, man, be a nomad and rent out my room, the whole house. And you've got this state-of-the-art, kick-ass, unbelievable friggin' studio that if you can dream it, you can make it, man. And in this awesome setting, 25 miles north of the city, with 6 acres backing up into 600 acres of parkland. You can hike to New York. There's a trail right out my back door. You can hike to New York, or you can hike to Albany, or you can hike to the Appalachian Trail from here and pick that up and go all the way to Georgia or to Maine if you want. So there's all that, but there's also the city. You can go to the end of my dead end street and wave down a bus and it'll take you, or you can go 2 miles and take a ferry. So it's that remote, but it's that close. So it's that little artist's paradise that I wanted to share, because I've got like 40 guitars here that are in a museum that should be getting played, not looked at. And that's the personal side, JC. That's where my heart is sitting, mixed in with everything else.
Dude, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and to learn something from you. So I just want to say thank you for joining me in this little venture. So, Mr. Marek Stycos,
of course, man.
Thank you very much.
All right. No te preocupes, my brother. Right.
All
Great
right.
to see you too.
Great to see you, bro.
All right.
Peace out.